Okay, so we're diving into how being connected impacts happiness.
Uh-huh.
We're looking at this podcast episode, The Power of Connection.
Yeah.
It's, I think a lot of people listening are probably really interested in this because it's such a, core part of being human.
Right.
We all want to be happy. We all want to feel connected. And yet,
Yeah.
modern life makes it hard sometimes.
Absolutely.
So this episode is really cool because it not only digs into like the psychology of isolation,
Okay.
it actually gives us some, real world tips,
Yeah.
which is really cool. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, me too.
So to kick things off, I mean, I think it's important to state the obvious, right?
Yeah.
Humans, we're social creatures.
We are. And it's not just a feel-good thing. I mean,
Right.
we were talking about survival.
Right.
Throughout human history, these bonds, they weren't just a nice to have.
Yeah.
They were essential.
Imagine if, like, you were the only person on Earth.
Yeah.
Talk about depressing.
No, absolutely. And I mean, think about our ancestors. They needed each other
Right.
for safety,
Uh-huh.
for resources, for raising kids.
Sharing, all of that.
Exactly. And that's powerful stuff.
So it's literally like in our DNA.
It is. It's deep.
To connect.
Yeah.
I mean, so then the question becomes like, what happens when we don't have it?
Yeah. What happens when we're isolated?
Yeah. Like what's going on in our brains and our body?
Well, it's not pretty.
Yeah.
Isolation can really, it takes a toll.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking sadness, we're talking depression, even physical health.
Okay.
There's this study,
Oh, wow.
chronically lonely people, their cortisol levels are through the roof.
Cortisol, that's the stress hormone, right?
Exactly. And over time, that's bad news.
Right.
It's heart problems, it's a weakened immune system, it's serious stuff.
I knew it wasn't good, but I didn't realize like the extent.
It's powerful stuff. Really shows you just how important these bonds are.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking overall well-being here.
So it's not just, in our heads, it's impacting our physical selves too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it's not just the physical stuff either.
Yeah.
Loneliness, it can also lead to this kind of a vicious cycle of anxiety.
Ooh, that's interesting. I feel like that's something a lot of people listening can relate to.
Absolutely.
So break that down for us. Like, how does that work?
So imagine you're feeling isolated, right? You start worrying about social situations.
Uh-huh.
You might fear rejection
Yeah.
or judgment.
Yeah, you don't want to put yourself out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you avoid these situations,
Oh, I see.
which just makes you more lonely.
It's like a trap.
It is.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, this kind of prolonged anxiety, it can actually shrink the hippocampus.
And remind me, the hippocampus, that's the part of the brain that does what?
Learning and memory.
So, wait, it's like not only do we feel bad, but our brains actually start working worse.
It's a double whammy.
Wow. So we've established like connection really matters.
Really matters.
But let's get a little deeper. Like why? What's the magic ingredient? What is it about these social bonds that makes us so happy?
Well, think about it. When you have a real connection, a genuine one,
Yeah.
it gives you this safe space to express your emotions, to feel validated.
To feel heard.
Exactly. To feel like someone gets you.
Like you're not alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that's powerful. It boosts your self-worth. It helps counteract all that negative self-talk.
Right.
In fact, the podcast mentioned this study.
Oh, yeah.
Just having one person, just one person you can confide in, can make a huge difference in your stress levels.
Wow. That makes me think about this one time when I was going through a really rough patch.
Uh-huh.
And I had this friend.
Yeah.
And just being able to talk to her about it, It wasn't even that she solved my problems or anything, but just knowing I wasn't alone, it just made me feel so much stronger, like I could cope.
That's a perfect example of how these connections make us more resilient.
Yeah.
It's like they give us this buffer against, all the crap that life throws at us.
Right.
And it's not just about surviving, though.
Yeah.
I mean, these connections, they bring so much richness and vibrancy to our lives.
I mean, yeah, think about like the times when you've felt truly happy, fulfilled.
Right.
There were probably other people involved.
Exactly. Sharing those moments, adventures, laughter, memories, all of it.
It's true. Okay, but here's the thing. We're talking about how important this is.
Yeah.
But then there's this, there's this challenge. It's like in some ways, this modern world that we live in, it almost makes it harder.
It does.
To find these real, deep connections.
Yeah, because, we're We're so hyper-connected digitally.
Right, right.
But are we really connecting?
Mm.
Or are we just,
Skimming the surface.
right, it's like we're so afraid of missing out that
Yeah.
we're constantly online, trying to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
And then we lose sight of those, like, real face-to-face.
Right. And that's, I mean, the podcast host called it connection overload.
Connection overload, that's good.
We're just bombarded messages, notifications,
Yep.
updates.
And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's actually, like, it makes you feel more disconnected.
It does. It does.
Okay, so knowing that it's important is one thing.
Yeah.
But with all these challenges, like, how do we actually build these strong bonds?
Right. How do we do it?
Yeah, what's the secret?
That's the question, right?
Yep.
But the good news is this podcast episode, it gives us some actual advice.
Okay, that's good.
And it starts small.
Okay, small steps. I like that.
Small, intentional steps.
But, like, what kind of steps? What are we talking about here?
Well, one of the simplest things, and yet, like, super effective.
Yeah. Is active listening.
Active listening. Okay.
Really focus on what the other person is saying. Ask questions.
So it's not just about hearing the word.
No. It's about making them feel seen and heard.
How could they matter?
Exactly.
Right.
You're building rapport. You're creating that connection.
Right. Right.
And it's not just the words,
Right.
right? It's their body language.
Yeah.
Their facial expressions. It's the whole package.
It's being present.
Exactly.
Right.
And you know what's cool? There's this study that found when people feel truly listened to, they release oxytocin,
Which is?
the bonding hormone.
Oh, wow. So it's like literally like a chemical reaction in the brain.
It is.
I mean, I know when I've felt really listened to by someone, it does something.
Absolutely.
It strengthens the bond.
Yeah. And, another key thing is moving beyond, like, the surface level.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to, share a bit more of yourself.
It's vulnerable.
Exactly. Your
Yes.
vulnerabilities, your passions, what makes you tick.
Yeah. But that can be scary.
It can. Especially nowadays when everyone's trying to, present this perfect image.
Right. Right.
But here's the thing, and this is what's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Research shows when you're willing to be vulnerable, people actually see you as more trustworthy,
Really?
more likable. It's counterintuitive, right?
It is, but it kind of makes sense. Like, we connect with people who are real.
Exactly. We connect with the real stuff, the flaws, the imperfections. That's the good stuff.
So it's about authenticity.
Yeah. And look, you don't have to, like, bare your soul right away.
Right. Right.
Start small. Share a funny story, a personal anecdote, just something that shows a little bit of who you are.
Let your guard down a little.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you'll probably find that others reciprocate.
Yeah.
And that's when the magic happens.
That's when the connection deepens. Okay, so active listening, vulnerability. What else? What else can we do?
Shared experiences.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big one.
Shared experiences.
And it doesn't have to be some big fancy thing.
Right.
Go try a new restaurant. Take a walk in the park.
Or just like have a conversation over coffee.
Exactly. It's those moments, right?
Yeah, those little moments.
Shared joy, shared connection. Those are the things that build those bonds.
It's about making memories.
It is. And don't forget the power of touch.
Yeah.
I mean, a hug, a pat on the back.
Oh, yeah, right? We haven't even talked about physical touch.
It releases oxytocin.
So it's like scientifically good for us.
It is. It builds trust, closeness. It's powerful stuff.
But what about those connections that, maybe they've faded a little bit?
Okay.
Life happens. People move. Priorities change. Like, is it ever too late to, to rekindle those?
Never too late.
Really?
Never. Reaching out, I mean, it might feel awkward, but trust me, most of the time, people are happy to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm always glad when someone reaches out, even if it's been forever. It just shows they care.
It does.
So how do you do it? Like, what's the best way to reconnect with someone after, a long time?
Honestly, it can be as simple as a text, an email. Just say, hey, I was thinking about you. How you doing?
Just something casual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you could reference a shared memory, something that brings back good vibes.
Oh, I like that.
And if you're feeling bold, suggest meeting up.
For coffee, for lunch, whatever.
Exactly. It's just about taking that first step.
Showing you care enough to make the effort.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to acknowledge the time gap.
Right, right.
Say, I know it's been a while, but...
But I wanted to reach out.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off.
But what if things have changed? I mean, people grow, they evolve.
Of course, that's normal. Relationships evolve. The key is go into it with an open mind.
Don't expect things to be the same.
Exactly. Just accept where they are in their life.
Meet them where they are.
Yeah. And even if you're not as close as you once were, the fact that you reached out, that's meaningful in itself.
It shows that you value that connection, even if it's taken on a different form. Exactly. And sometimes those rekindled friendships, they bring something really special to our lives.
Yeah, it's like you reconnect with a new perspective,
Okay.
a deeper understanding of, like, yourselves and each other.
It's like finding a hidden treasure.
Okay, but here's something I've been thinking about.
Uh-huh.
You know, we live in this culture that's all about, like, independence, self-sufficiency.
Right.
You know, be strong, handle everything on your own.
The lone wolf mentality.
Yeah, but, like, how do we reconcile that with this need for connection?
That's such a great point. We get these messages all the time telling us we have to be strong, independent, like we don't need anyone.
And while those things are important, it's like there's this pressure to never show weakness.
To never admit you need help.
And that's so isolating.
It is. It's the myth of the self-made person, and it's just not true. No one achieves anything truly great in isolation.
Right. We need each other.
We do. We need support, encouragement, belonging. That's how we thrive.
So how do we break free from that lone wolf mentality?
I think it starts with challenging those expectations, redefining what it means to be strong and successful.
Okay, how do we do that?
True strength. It's about being vulnerable. It's about having the courage to ask for help.
It's about letting people in.
Exactly. It's about leaning on others when you need it.
So it's a shift in perspective, seeing connection as a strength, not a weakness.
Exactly. And it's about celebrating interdependence.
Recognizing that we need each other.
We're all connected.
Stronger together.
That's it. And you know what? When we embrace that, we create a more supportive, compassionate world.
And a happier world, right?
Absolutely. The podcast actually talked about a study.
Oh, yeah.
People who feel a strong sense of belonging in their communities, they're more likely to do good things. Volunteer, donate to charity.
Wow. So it's like it benefits everyone.
It does. It does.
Okay, but before we go too far down that road, I want to circle back to some of the practical stuff we were talking about earlier. Strengthening our connections. You mentioned being present, being intentional.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so easy in this busy world to, get caught up in our own heads.
Right.
But when you make that effort to be present with someone.
Put down the phone, make eye contact, really listen.
Exactly. You're giving them your undivided attention. You're showing them they matter.
And that their thoughts and feelings are important.
It's huge. Even little things like remembering something they told you.
Oh, like when someone asks you about something you mentioned weeks ago and you're like, wow, they actually remember.
Exactly. Makes you feel seen. Makes you feel valued.
Yeah. It's the little things.
The little things make all the difference.
Okay, what other advice did they give in the podcast?
Well, they talked about acts of service. Going beyond yourself to support and help others.
I like that. Put the we before the me.
Exactly. And it could be anything, right?
Yeah, give me some examples.
Listen to a friend who's having a tough time.
Volunteer. Help a neighbor with their groceries.
Exactly. Look for opportunities to make a positive impact.
It doesn't have to be big.
No, not at all. It's about those moments when you know you've made a difference.
Yeah, you've touched someone's life.
Exactly. It gives you a sense of purpose,
Right.
of connection that goes beyond your own needs.
And that sense of purpose is like the opposite of feeling lonely.
It is. It's about finding your place, feeling like you belong, like you matter.
So it's not just about having connections. It's about feeling connected.
You got it. It's that sense of belonging. That's what nourishes us.
It's like food for the soul.
It is. It is. And speaking of nourishment, I think it's time for us to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into the power of connection. So we're back, diving deeper into connection.
I feel like there's so much to this.
Yeah, isn't there? It's amazing how much we've already talked about.
Like we've gone from, the actual science of it.
Right, the brain stuff.
To the actual tips and tricks.
The practical stuff.
But we've only scratched the surface, I feel like.
Oh yeah, there's so much more to explore.
Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about gratitude.
Ah, yes, gratitude.
It's such a simple thing, but it's so powerful.
It really is, isn't it? It's so easy to get caught up in wanting more,
Or we don't have.
Yeah, and we forget to appreciate what's right there in front of us.
Those connections that we already have.
Exactly. I mean, we're always trying to, expand our circles, build new relationships.
Yeah.
But sometimes the best thing we can do is just really appreciate the ones we already have.
Take a moment to really savor those relationships,
Yeah.
The friends who make you laugh,
Uh,
the family who's always there for you,
yeah.
the people at work who inspire you.
It's about shifting our perspective, from scarcity
Yeah.
to abundance,
I love that scarcity to abundance.
appreciating the richness that's already there.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that we have so much to be grateful for.
We do. We do. And, there's actually research that shows that gratitude
Yeah.
can make us more attractive to new connections.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, think about it. When you're grateful for the relationships you have,
Yeah.
it shows. You radiate positivity, you're more approachable.
You're just like more magnetic.
Exactly. And so, you attract more good stuff.
So the more you appreciate what you have, the more you get.
Yeah. It's kind of cool how that works.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
It is. It is.
Okay, so gratitude, that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Gratitude is key.
As we wrap up, I mean, is there one, big takeaway message that you want listeners to walk away with?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just remembering that connection. It's not a luxury.
Right.
It's a necessity.
It's fundamental to being human.
It is. We need it to be happy, to be healthy, to really thrive.
It's like it's part of who we are.
Exactly. Exactly. And, we talked about all the challenges that we face in the modern world,
Right.
but it's worth the effort
It is.
to prioritize these bonds, to nurture these relationships.
To build a life that's full of, love and laughter and that sense of belonging.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And remember, you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there who are looking for the same thing.
And even small things can make a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just a smile.
A kind word.
Just a little act of kindness.
It can have such a ripple effect.
It can. So let's all commit to strengthening just one connection this week.
Wow, that's a great challenge.
It is. It is. Imagine the possibilities.
I love that. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been so great talking about this with you.
Yeah, me too. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
And remember,
You are loved.
you are worthy.
And you are never truly alone.
Keep connecting.
Keep those sparks of human connection alive.